Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Surrey Board of Trade. I am Rona Doria, Events and Sponsorship Coordinator at the Surrey Board of Trade. I want to welcome you to this morning's Digital Impact Learning Lab, Small Business Insurance 101, How to Protect Your Business. I wanted to remind you that if you have any questions during this session, please put your questions or comments in the chat function and we will get back to them as soon as we can. If we are unable to answer your questions, we will get back to you after the session is over. I acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katsi, Kwikitlam, Kaikite, Semiyamo, and the Tuasan Nations, First Tuasan Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations peoples who live and work on these territories. The Surrey Board of Trade is a city-building business organization where they support business and bring business into the city. We are here to advocate for you, to instigate change at different levels of government, and to be your concierge of connection. Check our diversified portfolio at businessinsurrey.com. To introduce your presenters for today is the Senior Manager for Marketing, Small Business Insurance of BCAA. Please help me welcome Kyla Way. Kyla, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the team at the Surrey Board of Trade for having us here today to talk about small business insurance. So my name is Kyla Way, and I'm the Senior Manager of Marketing for Small Business at BCAA, as mentioned. And I'm here today with my colleagues, Dan Sarah, who's a Senior Field Adjuster and the lead for small business claims, and Patrick Smith, a Senior Commercial Insurance Advisor and one of our small business insurance experts. So we know you're busy entrepreneurs, so we're going to walk you through the business insurance basics with straightforward information to help you assess your business and the risks you face. So before we jump in the presentation, if there's any specific questions or information you were hoping to learn from this webinar, I encourage you to write it in the chat. If it's something we don't address in the presentation, we've left room at the end for a Q&A. So you may be thinking, I didn't know BCAA offers small business insurance, and you'd be right. Small business insurance is the newest insurance offering from the company. We found the needs of small business owners in BC were not being met, from being underinsured or having no insurance, struggling to find solid advice, or not finding insurance that meets the specific needs of their business. And it wasn't a convenient process. And let's be honest, insurance is the last thing you want to think about. You want to focus on your business, and so you want to get insurance taken care of as quickly as possible. So we designed an online small business insurance product to strike the balance of simplicity and personalization. So now you can customize, quote, and purchase small business insurance online with BCAA. Before I hand the presentation over to Patrick, just a few housekeeping details. The material covered in this presentation is provided for general information purposes only and is not intended to constitute legal or insurance advice. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat, like I mentioned, throughout the presentation, and Patrick and Dan will answer them throughout. And like I mentioned, if we can't get to them, we'll answer them at the end. So now I'll hand the presentation over to Patrick.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So I think we're going to start off here with, I guess did we talk about that? Kind of small business insurance, that 25% of the business are underinsured, have no insurance at all. That's a pretty interesting stat. So to get you started here, I guess we're going to start off with a poll question. So what is the primary industry or profession for your business? Hospitality, manufacturing, contractor trades, retail, landlords, business professional services, that would be like consultants, or other. So I'll give you a few minutes to do the poll there. And while you're doing that, I'm going to regale you with some small business stats in BC from our lovely Ministry of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation. This is last year's stats in 2021. So in British Columbia, compared to all the other provinces, there are more small businesses per capita. Small businesses employ the largest share of the workforce, and self-employment is more common than any other province. And 98% of the businesses in BC are considered small businesses, and that would be businesses under 50 employees. So in a province of 5.1 million people with 523,600 small businesses, this represents roughly 1 in 10 British Columbians are in a small business. So that 25% number there that's represented is, when it quantified, it's 130,900 small businesses that are either uninsured or not insured at all. So feeling lucky, I guess.
So Pat, were you able to see the results of the poll?
I did not, no.
Oh, okay. Are we able to pull that back up on the screen? There we go. So we have 25% in manufacturing and 75% in business and professional services.
Nice. So I'm assuming there's a lot of consultants and business professionals here today. Nice. So what is small business insurance? Well, insurance is there to help you in a lot of ways. It's there to, if you're caused damage to others, that'd be your bodily injury and property damage under your liability sections. Could be cyber risk. Could be theft and damage to your physical business if you're a retailer or so forth. It can cover loss of income if you're down by an insured peril. And that's another question that we get a lot, is what is considered insured peril? Well, a peril is an insurance term that represents an event that can cause loss or damage to others. So think of it as an event. An event would be like flood, sewer, backup, earthquake, flood that we see in BC. And include things like legal advice even can be incorporated into a business policy. And typically business policy is broken down into sections. There'll be a liability section, and that'll form the foundation of most all policies. There'll be a property section, and then there'll be a specialty section in there. And these will vary, your coverage will vary depending on, you know, the type of industry that you have and the type of business you're operating there. So commercial liability protects your business from damage caused to others. Like I was saying, commercial liability is the foundation of every single policy. You're not likely going to find a standalone property coverage by itself policy, unless it's pretty specialized, like it's for you know, a storage only policy or something like that. But a typical policy is always going to include a general liability in there, and primarily that's there to make sure that you're protected legally and for any bodily injury and property damage claims. So the general liability section is broken down into many sections as well. Today we're going to focus on some of the injury sections. Yeah, let's get into that. So first off, we got bodily injury. Then there'll be some property injury or property damage. There'll be personal injury, advertising injury. These are some of the common ones that you're going to find in your policies, and extremely important to have. And then supporting those injury ones, there's expense coverages like medical expenses and legal costs. So bodily injury, yeah, it's a physical injury to your body, but it's more than that. It means other things like disability, sickness, mental anguish, mental shock, mental injury, and it can include even death in there under your policy. Medical expenses, that's called incidental medical. So these are incidental medical expenses, usually for smaller amounts. It's included in your policy, like usually $25,000. And that's there to cover incidental medical injuries. So, and the thing about this is medical expenses can be triggered without any legal action or regardless of fault. So they'll pay for things like medical, surgical, ambulance, x-ray, professional nursing, even funeral expenses. So let's say someone slips and falls on your property and they hurt themselves, they break their leg. So an ambulance shows up and they ding $150. Then you're taking that person off to the hospital, and then there's attending physician fees, there's going to be x-rays, maybe there's going to be a cast that has to be formed, there's going to be maybe blood tests. So all these things can be picked up under your medical expense coverage. So phone it in, get your client looked after, or whoever it is. This prevents lawsuits, right? So we look after them. The sooner they're back in business, the better. Property damage. This is a property injury. So this is a physical injury to tangible property of others, as opposed to your property. So for instance, let's say you have a landscape guy working on your property, and he's out there clipping the trees, and this huge branch falls on the neighboring property. So that resulting damage to the neighbor's roof, now that's a physical injury to someone else's property. So the property damage section of your liability will pick that up. Or whatever it is, someone could trip and fall on your cord. They could slip and fall on your premises, whatever it is. So if you're brought into a claim where they think you're negligent, this would pick that up. Personal injury. So personal injury is not a physical injury. It's things like social wrongs, like humiliation or discrimination or defamation or reputation of character or something like that. But it's pretty broad. This personal injury section also includes things like false arrest, detention or imprisonment. Example of that would be, let's say you're a retailer and you falsely accuse someone of stealing. You falsely detain them. So you find out later they didn't steal something, they just had their ear pods and they put it in their pocket or something like that. So now you're drawn into a defamation suit. Things like malicious prosecution. So if you bring a wrongful criminal proceeding against someone, falsely accuse them, this could be picked up under this section as well. For you landlords out there, this could be things like wrongful eviction or wrongful entry into the property. If you're not following the residential tenancy agreement, the RTB1 there. So, things like that. So this whole personal injury thing there, it does earn its keep. It's there to protect you, and I tell you, it's pretty important to have. Then we get into advertising injury. And there's, we're all active in today's social and media environments. Small businesses are out there advertising every single day into every social platform that we can find, right? That's how we're out there promoting our businesses. So that social media environment, it's also a dangerous place. You know what? It might not be you who's doing the advertising for your business. It might be your sister-in-law, your brother-in-law, your spouse, your child, or your employee doing the advertising for you. And they're saying, hey, Dad, I see your competitors advertising there. I think we should mirror it. They're getting lots of hits on their social media platforms, and yeah, let's do it. And you do, and then a month later, you slap with a lawsuit. So yeah, advertising injury picks up those things like if you're using others' advertising ideas in your advertisement, that would be considered a breach of advertising there. Infringing on someone else's copyrights or trademarks or slogans, intellectual property. And, that's things like creations of the mind, like inventions, literary, artistic works, design, symbols. So you got to be careful, when you're out there and you're advertising. It means things like slander as well. Slander by speech or libel, if you're doing anything in written or picture or video format, you got to be careful as well. But the liability section's there, it's there to protect you as well. Moving into legal defense costs. And this is my number one pitch for people saying, hey, what do I need for insurance? I'm going to say, commercial liability. You can spend $1,000 a year for a commercial liability policy, or you can spend $1,000 an hour for a defense attorney to defend you in a lawsuit. So, do the math and it's going to make sense. Those lawsuits can continue for quite a long time. Property. So now we've done the liability section, and now we're into the property section there. So it covers your items that you own or are responsible for insuring against for a variety of perils such as fire and theft. Interesting about property, it might not be you who dictates the property coverage for your policy. It could be somebody else that does that. Case in point, building owners, landlords who own apartment buildings, office buildings, rental properties. They have mortgages on those properties. And now the mortgagee may dictate the type of insurance that you need on there. They may all risk insurance on their replacement costs on your building, loss of income, liability on their boiler machinery coverage, or equipment breakdown might be dictated under that mortgage agreement. Same with landlords for unit improvements and betterments. If you're renting a space or leasing an office space or a retail space, same thing. The landlord may dictate under the lease what coverages you have to have. So property could be anything usual to your business. So if you're a consultant or a professional, there'd be all your electronic gadgets, your office stuff. Maybe you have some specialized equipment that you're taking on and off premises. So you need a floater coverage for that. Anything usual to your business can be covered under the property section, whether you're a contractor or whoever. Stock, inventory, office supplies, like I said, all electronic gadgets can be included under the property section. We had
Pat, just to jump in, we have a question asking about e-commerce insurance.
Yeah.
So not too sure if it falls under this or specialty.
Well, yeah, if you're selling a product via e-commerce, online, Amazon businesses or whatever, or you have your own little business that you're selling online. Yeah, so you would pick up the liability for sure would need to be on there to cover you just in case you're drawn into a lawsuit if someone got hurt by your product. The property that you're selling would need products liability coverage on there just in case, again, you're brought back into that. If you need to cover it for transit from the time you have it until the time it's delivered to the client, that can be added on there as well. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
The third one would be your specialty coverage section of your policy. Usually it's broken down to things that are not property or commercial liability related. And these for your consultants out there, this would be things like errors and omissions, or for medical practitioners out there, physiotherapists, it could be malpractice coverage. It can include directors and officers liability if you're sitting on the boards of corporations or large strata corporations. They include things like maybe cyber coverage. More and more companies are adding cyber coverage to their policies. BCAA, we include expense only, some small limited cyber coverage, but it does not include defense costs. And you're going to find most insurers are not going to include defense costs under the cyber. You have to get a standalone policy for that kind of stuff. And there's specialty insurers who do that. And they have limits up to $5 million. So if you're in a situation where you're gathering information from clients like medical offices or legal offices, and you're responsible for the privacy of that information, I would suggest that you definitely get cyber coverage just in case you're hacked and that information gets out there and you're drawn into a lawsuit for not protecting it.
Pat, just to interject, we had a question specifically for directors and officers insurance. How does that work for a consulting company?
Well, if you're sitting on a corporation and there's different directors and officers in there, the corporation could be drawn into the lawsuit. So usually when a corporate entity is brought into a lawsuit, they're going to go after the directors and officers for negligence. So it could be also drawn in from one of your directors and officers who may have been done something negligent that they shouldn't have done. Another director and officer may be suing them. So directors and officers are very important if you're sitting on a board because they're going to sue the corporation. And under that corporation entity, the directors and officers are going to be the ones that are responsible for any negligence that corp. So again, that's a special coverage, and you'd have to get that usually standalone added to your commercial general liability policy.
Benjamin, let us know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you know what? Just you can email us if you have any more questions. We can give you, I can probably send you some information on what the responsibilities are for directors and officers specifically. A lot of companies provide a lot of information on that.
And Pat, do we offer D&O insurance?
We don't offer it at this point in time. It's something that we're looking at adding in the near future. So yeah, same with errors and omissions. We don't offer that yet. We're currently negotiating with some carriers, but we'll see that coming in hopefully this year or fairly soon. So yeah, we'll be pretty happy about that. So we can bundle these things together. Yeah, so surety and bonding, that's for contractors as well. So, you know, if you're an electrician, there's Electrical Safety Act bonds that you have to operate your business, or if you're a plumber and you're a Gas Safety Act bond, if you're doing gas fitting, if you're bidding on projects to like architects or whatever they're bidding on projects, they're going to need surety bonds maybe to bid on that project as well. So yeah, that's a specialty section, and you know, this is just some of the things. It's unlimited. People can add specialty boiler and machinery coverages on there, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, whatever it is. Okay, poll number 2. Now we're curious to where you guys are operating from. Store, warehouse, office, home, Starbucks, Tim Hortons, Palm Springs. That's where I like to be. Yeah, little satellite office in Palm Springs. Yeah, but now.
So if you're unable to select your answer in the poll question, feel free to put it in the chat. So Pat, 75% work from home and 25% in office.
Yeah, you know what? That is pretty consistent of the numbers we've seen in most seminars. A lot of people working from home, right? So yeah, you know, your home business, make sure that if you have a home business there, that you're talking with your home insurer to make sure that your business is covered, because usually it's excluded. You want to make sure that in the event of a claim that you in fact are covered there. So make sure you have that conversation. So do I need small business insurance? Let's find out if you do.
We just have a general question, Pat. So, you know, is there any different guidance you would recommend for a new business, which is less than a year old, when it comes to small business insurance? Does it make a difference how long the company's been in business?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the whole point of insurance is to protect you, right? So it depends how you set up your entity as well. So if you're a sole proprietor, that means any lawsuit's going to come against you personally, and that means they're personally coming after your assets. So liability insurance is there to protect you. So if you're drawn into that lawsuit, it's going to protect your assets, it's going to protect your future, it's going to protect your retirement, right? If you own a house or you're running a business there, all your equipment, you invest a lot in your business, liability is certainly the less expensive way to go. Corporate entities, they're usually more established. They have a little bit of money in the bank. Usually the lawsuits are going to go into corporate entity. And then again, that's where they're coming after the directors and officers for any negligence. So you think of it in terms of what protection do you need and what's the most effective and cost effective method to get that. So you can out of pocket these things yourself if you have RSPs that you can draw on, or you have a nice fat checking account or savings account you can draw on, or you buy insurance, right, to cover you. Like I said, when it comes to lawsuits, they tend to draw out quite lengthy periods of time, 2 to 3, 4, or 5 years. You're paying a defense attorney for that whole period of time. In the end, it might not even be settled, right? It may be settled out of court, which means you're going to have to out of pocket. So, you got to quantify it and do the math and look at your own exposure. And really, it's there to protect you. So, and some of these questions that we're going to ask right now is going to probe you and poke you a little bit and make you think. So, if your business were to cause damage to a third party, are you protected against a potential lawsuit? Do you operate your business out of a commercial space like a shop or a garage or a warehouse or office? Again, it might not be you, it might be someone else dictating your insurance requirements, like your landlord or your mortgagee, right? Do you have equipment, tools, or inventory that would be too expensive to replace? So if you can't out of pocket these things, then insurance is definitely your alternative to do that. Under $5,000, maybe you say, you know what, I'll just suck it up and I'll do it. I can pay for that. I'm not issue about that. Or I have $1,000 computer. I don't need to have $1,000 deductible on my insurance policy, so I'm just going to pay for it myself. But if you're carrying 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $500,000 for the equipment and tools and stuff, insurance might be the viable way to go. When the equipment breakdown significantly impact your ability to do business? Well, landlords, again, they have boiler machinery, they have air conditioning in their offices and their apartment buildings. Hotel, I had a claim where a hotel, their telephone system went down because that's where they do all their bookings and everything on there. It was over $150,000 just because of that breakdown on their phone system. So you don't think about it, but little things like that. Electrical panel blowing in an office building, shut the power off for 3 weeks, and business couldn't operate their business. So if your business had to shut down unexpectedly, would you have the adequate savings to support yourself? So that's that key question. Always thinking best way to protect yourself. And for consultants as well, you're giving advice. I know we get this every single day from consultants, and a lot of people they're forced into consultancy because they've been downsized from their employer. So now they're contracted back to their employer as a consultant, right? And so they say you got to have a commercial general liability policy, but looking at the scope of the work that they're doing, I mean, they're giving advice, their employees relying on their advice, even if they contractually say, hey, we'll look after it, don't worry, just give us your advice and we'll go from there. But I tell you, if you're brought into a lawsuit under your commercial general liability, it won't pick you up. It won't pick up any defense costs for your advice. So this is where errors and omissions is very important. If you err or omit to say something, or you failure to perform under a contract, that's what you need. So if you're collecting customers' information, again, this would be a cyber issue. Look at that if that's something that can be breached under your business. Our clients asking to see proof of insurance. Yeah, contractors ask every single day if they're bidding on projects, they need a certificate of insurance. Consultants, the same thing. If they're bidding on a job, they want to see clients want to see proof of insurance. And you know what? Responsible businesses want to deal with other responsible businesses. They want to know you have insurance because then they feel comfortable dealing with you. So it's an investment in yourself. Do your business goals include future growth? Exactly. So if you had a peril, like an insured event happen, like a flood in BC, and your business goes down, it only takes one peril to wipe you out, right? To bankrupt you. So knock on wood that you never have to go through that and never have to suffer a claim. But it's good to know that you have a good company like BCAA, and there to back you up in case you have a claim. And I can't think of anybody better to settle your claim than our own Daniel Sarah. So over to you, Dan.
Pat, before you hand it over to Dan, sorry, we have a question about multiple small businesses operating from the same property or home. And I think we dive into that on the next slide.
Yeah, like I said, I had a lady a few weeks ago who's operating a dog walking business. She's baking some goods, she's selling them. She had 4 or 5, 6 little things going, right? And she wanted to just umbrella everything and bundle it all together. So people are creative and they want to look after their business, but you have to have that conversation with your insurance rep there, and make sure that each operation is covered under your liability, because each operation has its own exposure and it has to be underwritten separately. So if you're operating 5 businesses under one company, that's fine. As long as they all qualify under that, shouldn't be a problem.
What if they're different business owners? So say your spouse is running one business, you're running one, and maybe another member of the household is running another.
Yeah, we see that. Again, each business has its own operation. So if Fred Flintstone's operating Fred's backhoe service and his wife is Wilma's baking service, they're obviously different operations and they're different entities. So they most likely need their own separate insurance. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, all right. Hello, good morning, everybody. If Pat's done now and we're getting on to what we can talk about on the claims side of things, I'll give you just a quick introduction here. You can call me Dan if you have any questions or if you want to chat. And I'm the adjuster for our small business insurance group. And my background is about 11 years in the claims department and more than half of that time doing commercial claims. And so Pat's explanation there about the different subject areas of commercial insurance was great and very detailed. That gives you the full picture of what makes up a commercial insurance policy and what it can do for you. And then now we can take a look at some claim scenarios and the claims process if something ever did happen and to your business. And so whether you work from home or you go to an office or you're on the road, there's a lot of situations that can happen that are common across all those environments, and which can result in having something to claim under your insurance policy. And so if we first take a look at this claims process, but before we get started, just a quick reminder, like Kyla mentioned, that this is all for general information and education, and it's not to be taken as advice on a specific claim. And so let's get into it. What happens when something happens? The first thing you do is you gather information and let us know about it. And so that would be that first step there to report the claim. We would ask you for information such as the timeline of events, starting with when you first noticed the problem or when you were first made aware of the problem by someone else, maybe one of your employees. And just the sort of general W5H of the situation. And so after that, that's reporting the claim. You might not talk to an adjuster right away. Insurance companies are all set up pretty similar. Some have it where you talk to a group of claim intake specialists who then pass it on to the adjuster most suitable. So that's why there might be a 2-step process there. But regardless, your adjuster, which would be me in this case, if you're insured with BCAA's small business, we'd contact you. And then that's when we'd go into more thorough details to get the full picture of what happened. And so, being the first conversation, we'd review what you have so far, and then identify any areas where we need more information from you. And so what would happen next with all that information gathering is that we use it, we put it together, and we try to match it up to where it can fit under your policy. And so we look at what you're covered for, what type of property you have insured, what as Pat was saying, the word peril, an insured peril is basically a type of loss or damage that your insurance policy covers you against. And so we'd see what you tell us what happened, and we try to match it up to one of those insured perils under your policy. And so as long as we can figure it out there and connect it to something that you have coverage for, the next step is to quantify the claim. And so that means we'd be asking maybe for invoices, or if it was tools that were stolen and they had a higher, mid-ticket or big ticket items, we might ask you for original receipts, things like that. If you bought it from a supplier, sometimes it's pretty easy where you can just send us a monthly account statement from your supplier to show us the list of property that you've purchased. Really, it's just a matter of figuring out how much of an exposure you've come across here. And then that would lead us to the biggest part that everyone's looking for, is the end of it all, to settle the claim. And so that can take different forms. When we're ready to actually say that this is how much the claim is worth, and we can pay this much to you under your insurance policy, sometimes it's a lump sum payment directly to a contractor if the whole claim is about repairing your premises. Or we could say that we might pay you directly if it's just maybe if it was stolen property and you're going to now be able to replace it. Or in a liability claim, Pat mentioned that the commercial general liability is the foundation of all of BCAA's insurance policies. And so in those claims under that part of your insurance, we'd generally be paying the person who got hurt or that property got damaged directly. And so you wouldn't see the money, but you would be aware of the whole process. And then, of course, there's business interruption that we also do have insurance for. So your downtime. And then we'd look at what amount of lost profits there were there, and see how basically that's what the coverage would amount to. And so we do have a couple examples here, just different industries that we have in our that we have as our target market, and what could happen, and what would you need to protect yourself if something did happen. And so when we go through these next few slides, you'll see a few different examples of industries, and you'll notice under the coverage sections there's going to be some commonalities, because a lot of stuff is the same for everybody. Everybody needs a commercial general liability policy. At least that's my opinion. If you did buy insurance, you would definitely want that. And then other items like that commercial building contents and stock that you see there. That's the second big part, where that's just really ensuring all the stuff that your business owns, whether we're talking hammers and a box of nails if you're a contractor, or in this hair salon situation, the building contents and stock that would cover all your supplies and inventory, your shampoos, your scissors, even the chair that you do the hair cutting in is all under there. And so let's take a look here. We've got a few different examples under the scenario section. And the first one there would be what we'd say is a very typical liability claim, a slip and fall for any reason. In this case, we've thought about hair on the floor. So hair on the floor is natural. That happens whenever you're doing the haircut. And if you don't clean it up right away and someone doesn't notice it, they slip and break their arm or something like that, then they could then justifiably try to claim against your insurance policy, and we would review it there under your liability coverage. And if we just skip to that third bullet point, a similar idea. If you damage anybody else's property, so not a physical injury to that person or to your customer, but here, say they have their purse on the shelf in front of them and you spill a hair dye, and it's a Gucci bag worth $3,000. Well, then that's something that you might not want to pay for out of pocket to your customer. So we would be able to handle a claim under your liability policy for that kind of loss. And then a little bit more straightforward, windows broken by vandalism. Very, very basic stuff. It does happen, especially if we're thinking downtown. It happens more regularly. And that's something that would go back to the commercial buildings, contents and stock. Within there's coverage for improvements or betterments. If you've done any upgrades to your premises, that's where you'd find the insurance. We can go to the next slide now. Okay, one moment. And so for a contractor or a handyman or anyone who does kind of repairs, renovations, again, the commercial general liability is a very important one if you cause any damage to your client's property. So say you're putting up some shelves on the wall and you nail through it. There's a pipe that you didn't know was there. And now we've got water flooding your client's basement. So we would look at it first as what's your work and what's the result of any accidents. And so we know that you're here to put shelves on a wall. You're not here to put a nail through a pipe. So anything outside of what you are actually hired to do would then be that causes any damage would be something we'd look at under the commercial general liability policy as well. And if you had some tools that were stolen, or say you leave a locked trailer at a job site overnight, and then you come back to it the next day and it's been stolen, in those cases, there is a different specific type of property insurance for businesses called that tool or equipment floater, and as well the installation floater. And floater is actually a real insurance word, and that means a type of insurance coverage that follows you. If you look at that commercial buildings, contents and stock up one line there, that is on premises only. So if you have a workshop or if you work out of your own home office, and you would need that commercial building contents and stock for anything there. However, once you travel, once you go to a job site, you're not on your own premises anymore. And so you would need that coverage for your property that you bring with you. So anytime you see the word floater, it's that type of portable coverage. Basically, you could think of it as it follows you instead of stays at home. All right, we can go to the next slide. And so another type of business, as an example here, professional organizer. This is a type of business where you're pretty much only doing work at clients' premises on their property. And so again, commercial general liability, in case you damage their home, contents and stock, that's just for your own office equipment, because again, that's talking about coverage on your own premises. But then now we're looking at another specific type of coverage, that electronic equipment and laptops, floater. And the reason for that, why we would have something specific like that, is that something like a laptop computer, or nowadays you might be bringing a tablet and maybe as a tool to help you demonstrate what the end result of your organizing is going to look like, or to help make a floor plan. You want to have a screen that you can show people, but laptops don't quite neatly fit under the definition of contractors' equipment. They're not really tools in that sense. So this electronic equipment laptops floater is something that was a more recent type of coverage specifically for those kinds of devices. And so if you're at home and there's a power surge and it destroys your computer in your home office, that goes back to that contents and stock coverage on your own premises. But say a similar thing happens, you're plugged in at your client's house and there's a power surge and then your laptop is damaged. Your premises coverage wouldn't be able to extend to that location. So that's why you would want to have that electronic equipment floater, so that you'd be covered when you're traveling. And then we've put crime on there. Crime is a different one. Crime is when, if you look at the commercial, the basic foundation policy, there's limited coverage for theft, and there's also limited coverage for internal crime, either by an employee or a partner or something to that effect. So the crime coverage, when it's a specific policy wording that's added on to the main policy, that's where you can have where you can find that coverage for a lot more diverse situations. And so we just went back one, Pat. There we go. So for example, say you're at your client's house, you're organizing their closet, and there happens to be some expensive decoration, maybe a vase or a piece of art on a table, and you elbow it, and now it's on the floor in a million pieces. That again goes back to your commercial liability. So you can see how there's so many different kinds of situations, large and small, that all would fit under that commercial general liability policy. And so, Pat, we can carry on. Thanks. Yes. And landlords. So landlords, this is a type of business so common all throughout BC, and especially in the lower mainland. And we can kind of think of it as two situations. You might be renting residential or commercial. And then within residential, you could even split it up into, you might own a whole house that you rent out to people, or you might own a unit in a building, a condo unit that you rent out. And so there are a few different coverages here, and then an additional very specific one to that condo situation. So to really beat it down again, we always recommend the commercial general liability policy as one of the most important. And then the commercial building contents and stock. It does seem a little bit weird sometimes when you think about it, when you're owning a condo unit. Is it stock? What is this? What is this contents? Is this building? Well, we would just compare it to your insurance policy. With a condo unit in a residential strata, you don't really own the structural part of it as the building. That's the strata. But any upgrades, any time you've improved the flooring or added much nicer quality of cabinetry, now you're responsible for that. The strata would only pay up to the base cost amount. And as a landlord, if that's your business, and you now have water damage or any kind of damage, say your tenant overflowed the bathtub, and now there's damage to these upgrades that you've installed, under the insurance policy, you might see them referred to as the specific term improvements and betterments. And then that's where you would need that specific condo coverage. And we do have that as one of the options in our small business insurance portfolio. And that's where we would call it the condominium unit owners liability endorsement, and then the property endorsement. So one would be, again, liability, just extending it to any liability that could happen that you'd be responsible for as a condo unit owner, or property damage. So when we look at that scenario, you're a landlord, your tenant is there as the sole occupant of this strata unit. So we know where the liability would go to if they caused any damage. However, as the owner of the unit, if you cause damage to somebody else or to the strata common property, you would most likely get that charged back to you, not your tenant. And so if that was the case, and when that does happen, you could then make that claim under your insurance policy for your business under that condominium liability endorsement. And then, as I mentioned before, with the improvements and betterments, that would be something that you would need that specific coverage to be able to pay for. All right, we can go to the next slide. And so just in general, to give some ideas about what could make it easier before you ever have anything happen to you or after something has happened, we have a couple tips and ideas here. So for example, just the same day that you've got your insurance policy, now it's yours, it's bound, it's official. It's always a good idea to take some photos, just general photos of your workspace, what kind of tools you have, how many, and then that way you've got a picture as a great reference to what was there. So say, for example, now you've had a total loss, a fire burned down the building where you rent your workshop. And you can imagine how difficult it might be to recall every single piece of equipment that you had. Did you have 10 hammers or did you have 15 hammers? Did you have 2 generators or 3 generators? You might know those big items offhand, but oh man, trying to nail down everything that was there before, or in a similar case, your whole trailer is stolen. You bought the insurance policy 5 years ago. You've been adding bits and pieces. You've lost a few. You know it's not exactly the same as it was when you first took out your insurance policy. So taking photos as you acquire more equipment or more inventory or larger workspace, anything like that. It just helps along the way. And it's something that you could save on your work computer's hard drive, and we hope to never have to open that folder again, but it's just so quick and easy nowadays with smartphones and their cameras, and saving on the computer doesn't take up a lot of space. And now, so if you did have a claim, those would be a great help. But what else could you do? What else could help? we know that whether you're 18 years old, whether you're 50, whether you're 80, a day after the big thing happens with all that stress, it's hard to remember everything. 5 minutes for me after it happens might be hard to remember. So I would say right away, as soon as you've caught your breath, you write down what happened. Maybe you draw a diagram if it was in the factory and there's something went wrong with the equipment and now there's damage in different areas of your floor. Quick little sketch, say the big equipment's here and the water spread there. It could just help jog your memory when you and I are having that first conversation. And same thing with photos. Take a picture of where did the damage start? How wide did it spread? You'd be wanting to collect names of anybody who either caused or contributed to the damage or got affected by it, and contact information for all those people as well. And then once when we're starting to talk about the settlement of a claim, we would ask you for things like original purchase receipts. That's what I was talking about way back at the beginning of my piece here. And so that comes into play where we're looking at the cost of something. What was it? What did you pay for it? Do you have enough insurance to pay the current replacement price or actual cash value? And so, keeping your receipts in the same way, I always recommend photos. So keeping this kind of supporting documentation like receipts or invoices, ledgers, if we have a business income loss claim and we need to look at your profit margin, things like that. You take a photo, save it on your hard drive, quick and easy when you and I have to talk about how much. And there you go. That's really my whole piece.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. So this, how BCAA can help. So this is a general scope of our expertise. And if your business doesn't fit in one of these specific categories, you can give us a call and we can review your specific business and what you need for small business insurance. So, BCAA small business insurance is unique. You can customize, quote, and purchase your policy online anytime. We just go through and ask you specific questions about your business to come up with the exact tailored insurance that you need. And then if you ever need help, we have a team of experts such as Patrick who are available to discuss details with you. And for a limited time, Surrey Board of Trade members can receive a new customer discount on BCAA small business insurance. So just use the promo code SBOT to receive $50 off when you're purchasing your insurance. So that concludes our presentation for today. So we can open it up for questions, if there's any. So if there's no questions, thank you for having us here today. And we hope you found it informative. I see a couple of people would like to connect with us. So I believe there'll be an email with information sent out afterwards.
Thank you, Kyla, Patrick, and Daniel for being with us this morning and sharing this important information. We will be sending you the recording and the facilitator's contact information after this session. Many more of this type of sessions are coming up, so please be sure to check our website at businessinsurrey.com. Make it a great business day, everyone.